Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. We're still in chapter 11 of Chaos by Tom O'Neill. This chapter is called Mind Control, the juiciest chapter of the book, in my opinion. We're still working on the little subsection called Jolly West CIA Asset. It's kind of a long section, so let's get started on that. And my apologies for, I think I was, well, it's dark subject matter, let's be honest. I think I was a little kind of grouchy in the last video. I don't know if it was grouchy, it just sometimes talking about dark stuff and dark stuff going on in the world, you know, brings you down a little bit. So hopefully I'll try to be a little less of a Debbie Downer in this one. No guarantees though, no guarantees. Plus I have a parent-teacher conference for one of my kiddos in a little bit, so we'll see how much we can get through. All right, let's do this. Okay, so West had hypnotized mental patients and normal subjects and exposed them to a host of drugs, including chlorpromazine, okay, I might butcher some of these guys, reserpine, amphetamines, and LSD, the same ones that David Smith would inject in his confined rodents about a decade later. Of course, at least two of these, LSD especially, would prove instrumental in the Manson family's group psychology. But when it came to elaborating on his findings about implanting memories and controlling thoughts, West skimped on the details. He seemed to have been in a rudimentary phase of his research. That, or he just didn't want anyone to know what he was up to. Acid, he wrote, made people more difficult to hypnotize. It was better to pair hypnosis with long bouts of isolation and sleep deprivation. Using hypnotic suggestion, he claimed a person can be told that it is now a year later, and during the course of this year, many changes have taken place, so that it is now acceptable for him to discuss matters that he previously felt he should not discuss. An individual who insists he desires to do one thing will reveal that secretly he wishes just the opposite. Since West's paper was light on specifics, it's hard to know if it was only a ploy for more funding. Whatever it was, the CIA felt it had to keep it under wraps. Why? Why would they want to keep that under wraps? You're just manipulating someone's mind. It's such a violation, you know? It's just, I don't care if it's in the name of science or whatever you think the greater good that you're, I don't know, furthering. It's wrong. Is it just me, or is this so sick and wrong I cannot even wrap my mind around it? When the agency was forced to disclose MK Ultra to the public, they submitted an expurgated version of West's paper to Congress, an act of deception that's never been exposed. Okay, let's unpack that because I'm not sure what I just read there. They submitted an expurgated version. I don't know what expurgated means here. I'm gonna look it up. Put it right here. Maybe you all know. I have no idea. An act of deception that's never been exposed. So is Tom O'Neill saying he's exposing it now? I think that's what he's saying. At the National Security Archives in DC, I found the version of the Psychophysiological Studies of Hypnosis and Suggestibility, that's the name of the article, that the CIA had turned over to the Senate. West's name and affiliation were redacted, as expected. But what shocked me was that the Senate's version didn't include West's 9-page attachment, but rather an unsigned summary. So they're whitewashing what they did blatantly. There was no mention of West's triumphant accomplishment, the replacement of the memory of a definite event in the life of an individual with a fictional event. In sworn testimony, the CIA said that everything it shared with Congress was intact, except for the redactions of researchers and institutions' names. Well, that's a blatant lie if we know that 9 additional pages existed and now they're just gone. But we all know they have no problem with lying, let's be honest. Now it turned out they hadn't just censored West's report, they'd completely misrepresented its contents. The 1-page summary of West's accomplishments in the lab doesn't exist in West's original. The new page was only a theoretical discussion of LSD and its possible effects on dissociative states. So it's basically washing his hands of the actual research that was done and making it all hypothetical. Why? Because they know it's wrong and that nobody would stand for it. And again, nobody suffered any consequences from this. Oh, it makes you so angry. It concluded the effects of these agents, LSD and other drugs, upon the production, maintenance, and manifestations of dissociated states has never been studied. Yes, it has been studied, and by these characters. West, of course, had studied those effects for years and years. I could only conclude that the CIA misrepresented the original document to mislead the Senate committee, thus striking West's research from the official record. As was my habit, whenever I found hard evidence of a cover-up, I started dwelling on one question after another. Didn't this counterfeit paper cast doubt on the entire cache of documents released to the Senate in 1977? I would think so. If they're willing to doctor one thing, what else has been doctored? Like I said, I believe the same is true of other things from that period of time, like the JFK stuff. If West's authentic paper had been so fuzzy about the effects of drugs, including LSD, on dissociative states, why had the CIA felt the need to generate a fake version? To cover their butts, let's be honest. Maybe because West had achieved one of MKUltra's most coveted goals. Despite testimony to the contrary, the CIA had, in fact, learned how to manipulate people's memories without their knowledge. Agency officials claimed the program had been a colossal failure, leading newspapers to run mocking headlines like the gang that couldn't spray straight. It could have been exactly what the agency wanted, for the world to assume MKUltra was a bust and forget the whole thing. Yeah, that would work quite well for them, wouldn't it? One thing's indisputable. The CIA's falsified documents invalidated the Senate investigation's findings. The agency lied, obstructed justice, and tampered with evidence, and the West documents prove it. See, Tom O'Neill stumbled upon this stuff in like the UCLA library. So I still have a sliver, a shred of hope that even though so much stuff was, shredded, burned, whatever they did with it, and in those days I don't think they had, any sort of technological backup of it, which I could be wrong, but maybe there's some dusty old box somewhere and somebody's gonna find. I hope so. Gosh, that'd be so amazing if so. Have a shred of hope about it. I don't know. Okay, given the furtive nature of his research, West could be surprisingly garrulous. All these $5 words, guys, garrulous. Among the press clippings in his file were 2 items from Portland, Oregon newspapers, both dated October 1963, the murky period between his Oklahoma hypnosis studies and the Haight-Ashbury Project. West had given an address to the Mental Health Association of Oregon, letting it slip that he was inducing insanity in the lab. Inducing insanity. You guys. Okay, onward. He framed these studies as positive developments. They might someday cure mental illness. Well, that's always how they frame it. Frame stuff like this in history. It's like, oh, but what about the children? Think of the children. Like they frame it in some way that seems benevolent, but that's never their intent. They're just trying to find some justification for doing the evil things that they're doing. So wrong. Okay, we are at the dawning of a new era, West told the crowd, learning for the first time to produce temporary mental derangement in the laboratory. The Oregon Journal noted that West listed the new hallucination drug LSD, along with other drugs, hypnosis, and sleep deprivation, as some of the things that he was using to produce temporary mental illness effects in normal people. Okay, so, you can just break the brain temporarily and then expect that it all goes back to normal when you're done with your little experiment? I don't think so. I don't think so. Reporting that West had done extensive work with LSD, the journal continued. The most important contribution of the drug so far is in producing model mental illnesses. Almost 15 years later, besieged by reporters after the New York Times alleged that he'd taken part in MKUltra's secret LSD experimentation program, West insisted that all of his LSD work had been confined to animals. Well, yeah, humans are part of the animal kingdom, right? Maybe he's just being, I don't know what he's being, besides evil. Denying any CIA affiliation. When reporters pointed out that he'd received an awful lot of money from the agency, he retorted that he'd had no idea that the Geschichter Fund and other sources were CIA fronts. Yeah, right. Legally, the CIA was obligated to tell the University of Oklahoma that one of its faculty had been on the agency payroll. Oklahoma revealed a heavily redacted memo saying that an unnamed professor, West, I confirmed through financial records, had been investigating a number of dissociative phenomena on humans in the lab, including an exceptionally rare clinical disorder known as LATAH. It's L-A-T-A-H. I'm not sure I'm saying it right, but I think so. A neurotic condition marked by automatic obedience. That's the Manchurian Candidate stuff. You program somebody to obey what you're saying. Oh my goodness, you guys. None of the allegations harmed West's reputation. By then, he'd left Oklahoma for UCLA, where he offered a steady stream of denials and continued to thrive through his retirement in 1988. Irascible and arrogant, he was quick to threaten lawsuits when anyone brought up the charges. Sometimes he threw in diversionary tactics. In a 1991 rebuttal, he claimed, "My secret connection to Washington, D.C. is not as a spook, but rather as a confidential advisor to presidents, from Eisenhower to Bush, Democrat and Republican presidents alike, have freely sought and received my counsel." I kind of believe that, actually. The whole left, right, us versus them thing, sometimes I feel like it's all just one. They're all kind of on the same side, same goals. It's just an act. It seems like that more and more every day to me. In a 1993 letter to the editor of the UCLA Bruin, he had the temerity to compare his accusers to Nazi propagandists because they're telling the truth and he's just outright lying. In Goebbels' tradition of the big lie, I was just about to say that. If you tell a lie big enough, I'm going to get it wrong. Here, I'll put it here somewhere. Basically, you have to tell a big lie and people will believe it. West added, "I have never taken part in mind control experiments funded by the CIA or anybody else," a statement belied by his own files. Yeah, because, I mean, you're going to lie. Spies, CIA, all that, they're trained to lie. They're trained to be interrogated and not give anything away. Why would this be any different? That's my opinion. Okay, so we'll get through one more little section, I think. The next one's called The Misadventures of Jolly West. You know, the name Jolly, he just seems like such a nice, likable dude. Oh my gosh. Not a likable guy. Maybe at a party or something, but what an evil human, in my opinion. Even before his CIA connections came out, West's experiments got him in plenty of trouble. In 1972, he announced plans to build a lab in the abandoned Nike missile base in the Santa Monica Mountains. He would call it the Center for the Study and Reduction of Violence. See, they play with words. He had no intention of reducing violence. Quite the opposite, if you ask me. Oh my goodness. These people, they manipulate words, they manipulate everything. It's so disgusting. or the Violence Center for short. Yeah, that's probably more accurate. The Violence Center, not the Center for Study and Reduction of Violence. There, in perfect isolation, he could study the origins and control of human violence by experimenting on prisoners. Governor Ronald Reagan gave the Violence Center a full-throated endorsement. That's interesting. But West's proposal for grant money landed him in hot water. He planned to test radical forms of behavior modification, implanting electrodes, and remote monitoring devices in prisoners' brains. A federal investigation concluded that the program involved coercive methods that threatened privacy and self-determination. Yeah, exactly, self-determination. The committee's disclosures stymied the Violence Center before it got past the planning stages. Supposedly, this might be another instance of things happening and them just, brushing it under the rug and saying, oh, never got past the planning stages. We never actually tried this in humans, just animals. I don't trust a thing that they say. I don't know about you guys. The California legislature vetoed the project. UCLA's student body rose up in protest of West. And this, to reiterate, was before anyone had a clue about his CIA work. Now I could tie West to the highest, most clandestine echelons of the Central Intelligence Agency. I could tie him to both of the Smiths, the authority figures from Manson's lost year in San Francisco, and through his efforts to open the Violence Center, I could tie him to bigwigs in the LAPD and the DA's office who helped to prosecute Manson. But I could never prove that he'd examined Manson himself, or even that they'd ever met. Nor had West taken part in Manson's trial. His absence was conspicuous. One of the world's leading experts on brainwashing and cults, he was hardly averse to publicity. Well, this would have tarnished his reputation a little bit more, I think. He appeared as a witness many times before. Manson was tried in his own backyard. The proceedings were international news, yet West went nowhere near them. Guilty conscience, I believe. I told David Smith about the CIA's research and its parallels with Manson. The agency had wanted to accomplish exactly what Manson succeeded in doing with the girls. I was wondering whether someone in the CIA influenced Manson while he was in San Francisco. I don't know, he said, but the military experiments are added proof that my hypothesis is correct, that it can be done. I don't trust him either. He probably knew exactly what was going on. That you can brainwash with LSD? He nodded. The CIA maintained that they never were able to accomplish it, I said. In part because they were basically taking normal subjects, he said, not susceptible girls in a reinforcing environment. When he evaluated Susan Atkins for a parole hearing 10 years after she'd separated from Manson, she was still under his control. I can't get him out of my head, she told him. He's still in my brain. If that doesn't scream implanting stuff into people's minds, I don't know what does. But was brainwashing really even possible? I'd always believed that Cold War era paranoia had overstated the potential for Manchurian candidates taught to kill by dastardly commies. On the other hand, I accepted that Charles Manson had altered his followers' minds and that LSD did a lot of the heavy lifting. He'd seemed to have an endless supply of the drug, though no one said how he got it. Plus, he was so often described as hypnotic. Ed Sanders had written in The Family of a hypnotist, William Denier, who managed a Sunset Strip club and alleged that he taught Manson how to hypnotize. Once again, there's that actor, Danny Trejo, however you say it, who was in jail with Charles Manson, and he said that Manson hypnotized him. So we know it could be done, or according to Danny Trejo, it can be done. Can you imagine having that in your past? Like, oh yeah, I was hypnotized in jail by Charles Manson. Ugh, gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. Ugh. It seemed dubious, but I confirmed that Denier had learned hypnosis in the Navy, And his daughter told me she'd seen her father teaching Manson at the club. With Alan Shefflin, a forensic psychologist and law professor who'd written a book on MKUltra, I laid out a circumstantial case linking West to Manson. Was it possible, I asked, that the Manson murders were an MKUltra experiment gone wrong? No, he said, an MKUltra experiment gone right. Which, if you think about it, if you look at Project Chaos, Project COINTELPRO, they wanted to bring the hippie/anti-war movement to its knees. And everyone says that the Manson murders basically did just that. So maybe that was their goal. This is all alleged, of course, but if you connect the dots and think logically, it does follow. Okay, in the back of my mind was the most confounding passage in Helter Skelter, one that I'd underlined, highlighted, and finally torn out and taped above my computer. The most puzzling question of all, Bugliosi wrote, was how Manson had turned his docile followers into remorseless killers. Even with the LSD, the sex, the isolation, the sleep deprivation, the social abandonment, there had to be some intangible quality. It may be something that he learned from others. Question is, who were the others? Something that he learned from others. Those had become the 6 most pivotal words in the book for me. I was more compelled than ever to peel back every layer of West's past, hoping that some tie to Manson would come out, or that I'd get the name of someone who knew the name of someone who could confirm that the two had met. On the way, I discovered some fearsome episodes from West's past. As a self-styled brainwashing expert, he'd been present whenever mind control reared its ugly head in American culture. Murders, assassinations, kidnappings, cults, prisoners of war, his fingerprints were on all of them. So that is the end of that section. What do you guys think? Do you think little old, sweet, jolly West was this innocent, just a scientist, an innocent scientist trying to cure mental illness and doing great things for the world by studying these things, was innocent? Or I can't even say it with a straight face. What an absolute piece of human garbage, in my opinion. And just to think that it's playing God. Like, you cannot just violate someone's mind, their memories, steal memories from people, replace them with whatever you want, experiment on prisoners, experiment on mental patients who their lives are already hard enough, but let's just make it worse. Let's induce mental illness in healthy, whole people. It's so sick and wrong. I don't even know what to say about it. For people that don't believe evil exists, I submit this as Exhibit A to them, because evil does exist, and this, in my humble opinion, is it for sure. All right, you guys, this was a little bit of a short one, but like I said, I wanted to get another one in. I'm trying to get this book done before my little anniversary, October 10th. Trying. We'll see how far or how close I can get to that. And once again, thanks for all the new subscribers. You guys are the best. And keep on commenting. I really enjoy interacting with you guys in the comments. Yeah, that's it. I hope you all have a lovely day. Hopefully I was a little less of a downer in this one for you guys. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.